Chinese community has been saying that DAP is very muted.
The halal logo was put on something that didn't have halal recognition or certification. The larger non-Malay community probably quite sick and tired of his antics. Welcome back to the Are We OK podcast, the podcast that talks about public policies and politics in ways that are relevant to you, our viewers, wherever you are. I'd like to wish you a Happy New Year, Happy 2025. This is our second podcast for January for this year. My name is Dr. OKM or Dr. Botak, and
I'm Peter, Mr. Money.
How's the new year been for you so far?
Oh, the new year has been great, man. Yeah, I think number one, it became very busy actually. Yeah, but at the same time, this year my sister came back from Japan, so get to spend some family time. Yeah, and then making some planning for the year. So I'm feeling quite excited.
Ramping up to do different activities.
Yep. Now, what about yourself? I understand you just came back from Singapore.
Yeah, I just came back from Singapore where we recorded our previous show. You know, looking forward to wrap up some projects before Chinese New Year. Yeah.
No, so New Year, new beginning, right? I was wondering if let's say this year there's a New Year's resolution, right? What will yours be?
Actually, I have moved away from New Year resolutions. I've moved towards what I call incentive or KPI-driven targets for me. Right? So meaning my target for this year is, I'm going to try to run a half marathon below 2 hours again. I've done it before. I've not done it in the recent past. So then I train accordingly. I want to write a book by the end of the year. So I set that target for myself. And do some KPIs along the way. So I've listed them out somewhere. Hope to be able to share them on social media sometime soon.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, I think if you go in line with that, right, we do have a KPI or resolution for this year.
Okay.
I think I want more of the people who are watching this to actually hit the subscribe button. Because as we were checking in, what we found is that close to about 60 plus to 70% of the people who actually watches the show do not subscribe, but they listen to it regularly.
Okay.
And then they've been asking us, hey, why you don't update? So friends, I need to tell you this one thing. Yeah, you have to hit the subscribe button. And number two, you have to turn on the notification. So our resolution KPI for this year will be, we want to hit the 50% mark.
So yeah, if you want to help us out, help us get more sponsors, hopefully this year, do more interesting and exciting projects, including some live shows, including some shows that are outside the studio. Please click the subscribe button to give us more, leeway and leverage. Peter, I want to ask you, when you go to different markets or supermarkets and different convenience stores, do you have a favorite go-to sandwich?
Unfortunately for me, no.
Like for me, if I go to, let's say, Family Mart, right, I will usually want to buy their egg sandwich.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the egg sandwich is very nice, with a bit of tuna and all that, and crab meat. And I noticed that there's a lot of these kinds of sandwiches that are being sold at different convenience stores, whether it's 7-Eleven, My News, CU and all that, and also, of course, KK Mart. Apparently, in KK Mart, they also have a sandwich that has gotten popular for the wrong reasons, which is the first topic of discussion today. It's a ham and cheese sandwich.
Right.
Have you heard of this?
Yeah. So I was wondering, today's angle of discussion, are we going to do an English lesson or are we going to talk about the halal cert? Which one are we going to tackle?
So for the benefit of our readers or our listeners, there was a ham and cheese labeled sandwich that was had a halal certificate being sold at 1 or 2 KK Marts in University Malaya, right? And the meat was actually chicken meat, right? So it's not like it's not pork, but they call it ham and cheese sandwich rather than chicken ham sandwich or chicken sandwich. And this created a lot of controversy because, not surprisingly, the first person who jumped on this is no other than the person who jumped on the KK Mart sock issue, the UMNO youth chief Akmal Saleh.
Yep.
Right. So he said that this is mencabarkan Islam and mencabarkan orang Melayu. Is a challenge to Islam. Is a challenge to the Malay population here in Malaysia. And of course, I think once that news of this issue went out, immediately closed the 2 KK Marts there pending investigation. JAKIM came in, KPD and HEP came in. Before we go into the details of that issue, what was interesting to me in this particular episode is the fact that once Akmal came out to say this, the new DAP youth chief or DAPSY youth chief came out. His name is Wu Ka Leong. He came out to straight away hantam Akmal for trying to racialize this issue, right? And I think this is quite interesting because Wu Ka Leong is a Perak exco. He is not very well known in the national circles, but he is, 34, a lawyer by training, graduated from very similar to his boss lah, Ngah Koming. They are from the same constituency. Ngah Koming is the Teluk Intan MP, and of course he's also the Perak State Chairman. And Wu Ka Leong is also Perak State Exco, in charge of new villages and also domestic trade. And now he is DAPSY Youth Chief, and he is selected, I think, a way or approach to be much more aggressive in terms of addressing or challenging people like Akmal. Right? So in the past, if you notice, whenever Akmal says something, right, the response to him among the political parties within the unity government usually a bit muted.
Yep,
or
that's right.
takes a while before they speak up.
That's right.
Of course, Wu Ka Leong's predecessor, the MP for Bandar Kuching, Kelvin Yee, he also had a few statements that challenged Akmal, but maybe in a different kind of tone lah. This Wu Ka Leong, I think the way he challenges Akmal is much more sarcastic, much more cynical, much more tajam lah, sharper, right? So I think this will be a interesting sort of like a show for us to see.
Yeah.
But can I ask you, why do you think? What do you think of this approach that Wu Ka Leong is having, and who do you think is appealing to?
When I'm looking at this, I think firstly I was quite surprised because usually when it comes to this kind of issue, DAP will try to stay away a little bit, at least as long as we can. Simply because it's quite sensitive, right? Like you say here also wrong, say there also wrong, right? Like even for us tackling this issue, we also got to be a bit careful, right? Now, my personal thought is that for someone with a political career to do this, there's someone that they're trying to appeal to, and number one, a boss to please, right? In terms of a boss to please, definitely it'll be in the Perak state government lah, right? Yeah, so we'll know who's the...
To be more specific, not the Perak state government, but Perak State DAP.
Perak State DAP.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So, and I think we can see the similar approach because the boss also is someone who speaks up very strongly, which later came in and joined in the circle.
Yeah, you're talking about Ngah Koming, like the housing minister.
That's right. Yeah, Ngah Koming came in and then threw some punches. Yeah, it's quite exciting to see. Yeah. On the other hand, I think maybe my suspicion is this. Because for a very long time, the more Chinese community, the really Chinese community has been saying that DAP is very muted. For Ngah Koming to speak up too much is a problem because he holds a federal position. Yeah. And now their main focus is we want to stay united. I know they have their facts at the back. They will tell the unity government, oh, maybe this one we don't agree, but
publicly lah.
But publicly, they are trying to keep one same front. I guess my point is that the steam need to have some outlet lah. So I feel like maybe now he is the new, how do I say it? The new striker.
Yes, correct. I think you've hit the nail on the head. Different politicians have different approaches lah. And I think Wu Ka Leong has probably been trained in the Ngah Koming style of saying things. And he clearly sees it as one of his responsibilities to speak out against Akmal, whom I think the larger non-Malay community probably quite sick and tired of his antics, right? In terms of how he tried to jump on a lot of these issues to provoke certain sentiments. My sense is that probably some in the Malay community also can see through some of his actions and words. Lagak lah, belagak, trying to act tough and all that kind of stuff. So in a way, I think Wu Ka Leong coming out to go and respond very directly and very sharply to Akmal is one that definitely has the blessing of the party leaders, and also fills in this gap which maybe the non-Malay community, especially the Chinese community, feels DAP needs to say something lah.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's an interesting approach. But what was also interesting to me was not only did of course the spotlight was very much on Akmal versus Wu lah, because they're both youth chief, right, of two parties, important parties in the unity government. But there were others who chime in as well. Wee Jack Singh, one of the VPs, vice presidents in MCA, who's also an MP in Johor, he came out to whack Akmal. Right, so you have DAP and MCA on the same page on this, and then you had Ngah Koming coming out also to say certain things, which we'll talk about when we go into the language. But you had somebody like Fahmi Zainul, who's from PKR. He's an exco in Penang, at the Adun in Penang. He came out to support Akmal, right? So suddenly you can see this issue becomes one that is racialized lah. Right, so I think therein lies some danger, in the sense that if both sides want to stoke up the fire, it may get out of control. I don't think it will get out of control over this issue, because I think it will die down. It's not as sensitive as the Allah words on the socks. But when you amp up the kind of rhetoric on both sides, the stakes become higher.
Yeah, it will plant a seed lah. Yeah, actually now to think about it, right, I guess firstly it's quite interesting because I think YB Nga last time used to play that role where he is the voice of the Chinese circle to speak up against these kind of matters, right? And because now he's forced to tone down, there's another person who need to take the place to fill up the gap. But on the other hand, there's this danger about this thing. I think the more I look at the situation, the more I feel like there are people, especially characters like Akmal, who try to play into this issue to their political benefit, but plants a very dangerous seed. Because the more this goes on playing, right, the more the attention is actually going to be on racial issues.
Correct. Yeah,
right?
rather than the maybe more important issues of trying to handle the economy, institutional reform, and this kind of thing lah. Yeah.
And I also feel a bit bad for KK Mat. I don't know, maybe Chinese say mo pai sana.
Kena again.
Yeah. I wonder how the boss feel.
Yeah. But let's go to the substance of this issue lah. The packaging clearly says ham and cheese, and then there's a halal logo, right? The company has come out to say that the ingredients used is halal. Jakim has come out to say that it's not sufficient for the ingredients to be halal for you to get the halal certification. You also need to make sure that the packaging, the processing is also done in a way that is consistent with halal principles lah. So it was not just a case of maybe wrong labeling, and we can discuss more, but it's also, I think, a more serious case whereby the halal logo was put on something that didn't have halal recognition or certification, right? So this is something that I think is quite serious. Of course, at the supply chain level, definitely could be an expensive lesson for KK Mart again, but also warning to other retailers, especially those in the F&B sector, to check the supply chain.
Yeah.
Right. But in terms of the wording itself, since you talk about the English language, Peter, what do you think about the argument that Akmal is saying? He said ham and cheese is misleading, and then others, including Ngah Koming, coming out to say, there's beef ham, there's chicken ham, doesn't mean once you say there's ham, it has to be pork, right? So, ham and cheese could be halal. So what is your viewpoint on that?
My viewpoint on that is in actual practice. Okay, what do I mean by that? I think since I was a kid, when I went to Delhi, France, it was named as ham as well.
Okay.
When I go to hotels in the morning for breakfast, the word used is also ham, despite the fact that the whole hotel is a halal buffet spread. So whether or not you want to go deep down into the exact word when you use ham, there is what do you call that? Implication that it usually comes from pork. If not, you should say chicken ham. But the truth is, in practice, Malaysians do not have such practice hold tightly. It was quite loosely held over the years. So I don't see the problem.
Okay.
Right? Because in the context of everything is like that. On the other hand, I disagree that halal forgery, that's definitely clearly wrong.
Yep.
Nothing to say. No, but this will, my concern is more of this. I believe you have other concerns that you want to go into. But my concern is more of this. Sometimes the way that he positioned it and the way that they try to put it sometimes when they're being more extreme is, this is a Islam issue, not your problem. You have no right to comment of how I should interpret it because it comes down to my religion. If we are going to go that direction, if anyone will leave a comment in that direction, then my opinion is, don't bother lah. I know the opinion lah. And I'm so sorry if I offend you lah.
So my take may be a bit different from yours, Peter, because I agree that maybe the definition is a little bit loose, but increasingly I've seen restaurants where, for example, buffet in hotels, for example, when they have bacon, they put there beef bacon, right? When they have sausages, right, they put chicken sausage. And these are hotels that are obviously halal, right? For the places where I go overseas, right? If it's sausage, then it's pork, right? So, in Singapore and Hong Kong, right? So, in a way, I can understand why, from a sort of like, nomenclature or how you name these things, I can sympathize a little bit with Akmal, even though I don't agree with his approach. But the group of people that says, if you want to say that it's ham and it's halal, you better make sure that it's either chicken or beef ham, and you should put it there, right? There is some I think validity in that kind of argument.
I mean, to add on to that, I think it's a good practice. But in context, I just don't think that we have been very strict. Yeah, so to penalize it in that manner, maybe a little bit
too harsh,
out of context, right? But if what you are trying to say is, hey, I think all this while we have been doing that, but I think this caused a problem because in this case here, there's also a fraudulent certification added together. Don't you think we should do more to prevent this? Therefore, in future, we should have specific naming, fair, right? And I think that's good.
Yeah. So I think one middle of the road way of doing this would have been, rather than to, use social media to go and make this into an issue like what Akmal did, a more conciliatory way of doing it wouldn't it have been better if, let's say, Akmal and Wu come together, right, to say, look, we're both concerned about this because we, don't want people to be confused. We don't want these things to be racialized. So we ask for JAKIM to come out with a proper ruling or regulation, right? To say that if, let's say, you're going to use the word ham, and it's actually chicken ham or beef ham, you have to specify what sort of ham, especially if you want to have that kind of halal certification. Right? So that would have been a much more, I think, Madani way of doing
That's right. Yeah,
doing
I
things,
do agree.
right? I think both sides also want to get their own political mileage. One side speak out already, the other side very hard to go and be friends. So this side also have to speak out, and then they start calling each other names and things like that. And I think this will be the trend that will continue. I don't think either side will back down. If there's other instances in the future, I'm not sure whether they would automatically want to seek a more conciliatory tone in terms of moving forward or not. Right. So I think this is something to look out for. And in the meantime, I'll stick to my egg and crab meat and egg and tuna sandwich. I'm less sensitive compared to all these things.
But before I end this part of the section, right, I want to ask this thing. Do you think that this will be very detrimental to the Malaysian politics moving ahead, especially with ASEAN coming, with us standing in the juncture of opportunity to play in the global stage, right? Malaysia's way of politicizing racial cards has always been a global concern as well. Although we are also a country that has been touted as managed very well these racial cards, and kudos to that, right? But don't you think that we should have some sort of regulation or law concerning this? Because while right now there is say, don't touch 3R, but do you think that we maybe should have some sort of a board, a supervisory, and like I got a 3-strike thing. If someone try to play this too much, then hey bro, you better sit down, quiet, kind of thing.
I'm always very wary about these kinds of boards or government intervention because it will be used to suppress speech in other ways.
Right.
So I'm a bit hesitant. I think I'm much more open towards a situation whereby politicians both young and old and in between, they come out to show the way. Right? They come out to show the way in terms of how we could actually tamp down some of this racial rhetoric and give an alternative in terms of how we can actually come together to try to overcome some of these problems. And if you do it that way, right, it will be much more inspiring and also menunjukkan satu teladan yang lebih baik lah. It's showing a much better example in terms of moving forward lah. If you just clamp on the speech, right, people will find other ways. Then if they say something, then police go and investigate, government go and investigate, do punishment and all that. Then we're back to the days of in the past, right? So we don't want to be in that situation where we regress lah. So hopefully we can see more interesting sort of like people coming out to push for a middle ground or middle pathway.
Then I have a question to end this as well: is why are there no political leaders who are more senior who come out and speak something that's much more neutral? Like maybe a more senior person, like maybe say Hishamuddin ke, or one of the bigger boys ke, come out and say something more.
Usually the more senior ones, they will come out to sort of like soothe the ruffled feathers after you've escalated it to a very high degree already.
Right.
When they've quarreled and then it becomes a very serious issue, then only the elder statesmen come in and try to make peace.
So now it's still the child's play level. They're saying, you all fight a bit. After 1 month, you go away. So never mind, no need to.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that, rather than using this as an outlet for ethnic insecurity, come together and show a more positive way of trying to resolve things. Right? And another example that I've given in the past, this former Prime Minister Ismail Sabri, when he was minister in another capacity, he started this Bumi Putra only IT mart. Do you remember? I mean, it's failed quite spectacularly, right? But to me, it would have been much better if, let's say, he tried to bring together, Bumis and non-Bumis who want to be in the tech sector, and then showcase good examples of how you get companies that actually have employees that are multiracial, management that are multiracial in the IT sector. To show that this can be a much more sustainable model moving forward, rather than to say, since this sector seems to be dominated by X-rays, the non-Malays, for example, then I set up another outfit which is totally only for Bumi Putras, right? So we shouldn't delve too much into this, but just trying to be creative to find the middle path, I think.
For example, if let's say right now, statesman say is a Chinese or whatever, come out and suddenly say, I think we should enforce a specification of wording for ham, something like that, so that we can ensure our Islam friends, our Muslim friends have a safer environment. That would be very cool, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, instead of just fighting, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
I'm learning to be a politician.
Yeah, maybe you can run next time. All right, thanks, Peter, and then we'll be right back after this. Welcome back to part 2 of this Are We OK podcast, the second podcast for this year, 2025. Peter, second topic is something that we've discussed before, and I just wanted to give our viewers an update. This is with regards to the Malaysian airports holding Berhad privatization exercise.
Yep.
It was supposed to come to a conclusion on the 8th of January, but the main stakeholders in this privatization exercise, namely Khazanah and EPF, together with 2 foreign partners, ADIA as well as Global Infrastructure Partners, GIP, extended the deadline until the 24th of January, right, which is next week, a couple of days before Chinese New Year. They need to get about 90% of shares to make this privatization exercise successful. As of the time of this Edge report that came out earlier this year, they've acquired about 86% of the shares, so about 4% to go. What is interesting is that the acquisition price is 11 ringgit. The share price as of today, when I checked this morning, was about 10.90 . So the premium is quite small already now. What I think is interesting is the fact that there have been a lot of comments by different people who are part of this ecosystem, whether they are supporting or not supporting or somewhere in between with regards to this privatization exercise. So, one of the things that really took me by surprise was the fact that 5 of the independent directors of MAHB said that this offer is unfair and unreasonable. I think their rationale is that MAHB had just been given an extension to their concession of another 45 years, managing most of the airports in Malaysia. So that maybe, in their opinion, wasn't really properly priced in, right? And these 5 independent directors, Muhammad Hussein, Ramanathan Satyamurthy, Cheryl Kaur, Koh Peng Kang, and also Chris Chia, I think quite brave of them, to come out with this position, because I salute them for coming out with this position, because in their position, you can imagine if, let's say, they are going against the decision or the desires of Khazanah, EPF, and also the government of Malaysia, right? The chances of them being reappointed as board members, I think, would be much less,
Yeah.
right? And this may put them in a position whereby if they want to take other board positions, especially on government-linked companies, right, it will also be difficult.
That's right.
Don't you think?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did you find this surprising?
Yes, because this whole thing is a whole supply chain in itself.
Okay.
To stand up publicly and actually speak against on this, right? It's almost I wouldn't say career suicide, but definitely not putting yourself in a good position. So actually, my question is, why so brave?
I think they are not alone in having reservations about this deal. Of course, I myself, I don't quite agree with the position that some people have taken to say that, Global Infrastructure Partners is owned 100% by BlackRock. We need to send a signal to say that we can't have this deal because of BlackRock's association with some of the things that are happening in the Middle East, rightly or wrongly. I mean, it becomes a very complicated and complex kind of decision, because BlackRock owns stakes in most of the listed companies in the world, and also in Malaysia, right? So, but Hong Leong Investment Bank did come out to say that the offer is not fair but reasonable because of the lack of other offers. So they recommended that shareholders should take up this offer. Hong Leong Investment Bank is not saying that, this is properly valued, but this is the best that you can get, right?
Correct.
And then another writer P. Gunasegaran, who writes for Kini Biz, Malaysia Kini, says that minority shareholders should reject the report because of certain reasons. His reasons are more economic, it's not properly priced in, and that kind of stuff. But a couple of ministers have weighed in on this. Right, Anthony Loke has come out to publicly support this privatization exercise. In the past, he's always deferred or referred this deal to Khazanah and also to EPF to answer. But he has come out to say that he supports this because it makes the decision-making process on certain things much easier. And he's pointed to the fact that the SkyTrain in KLIA has not been properly serviced and maintained. It's not. It was supposed to be ready by January this year, January 31st, but I don't think that's going to be likely. So Anthony is not happy with that, and I think the resumption of the SkyTrain services, I think, will definitely be postponed. So that's one argument that he's used, and then also Tengku Zafrul recently also issued a social media kind of clip. Talking about the importance of the role of the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority, ADIA, who's 15% partner in this privatization exercise. And, just to take you behind the curtain, when somebody like Anthony Loke comes out to say this publicly, when Zafrul comes out to say this publicly, already, this is a deal that is backed by PMX, right? And I think the fact that Zafrul highlighted ADIA, it is not surprising that this happened during the time that PMX visited Abu Dhabi, UAE, where we signed an economic partnership agreement that is similar to a free trade agreement. Right, that's the first free trade agreement that we have with a Gulf country member, and there may be more to come. So you can see. This is one way in which PMX wants to do his balancing strategy by making sure that he shows a signal that he's open to investors, especially very powerful and rich investors coming from UAE, right? So you can see, I do very much believe that with the two ministers coming in to make these statements, with the tacit backing of the Prime Minister, this deal will get done, lah, right? But we don't know what the collateral damage is, lah.
Yeah. What do you think are the pros and cons of this deal?
I think we've spoken about this before. I think the pros have to do with the fact that GIP should bring in some expertise in terms of management from what they've learned, the good and the bad from other countries. Similarly with Abu Dhabi investment, they have different experiences in terms of global investments, including in the infrastructure ecosystem. It hopefully will make the decision process faster and more robust, compared to the decision-making process now. But of course, the proof of the pudding of that process should be seen in, for example, things like appointments of new people, new leadership after this privatization exercise is done, to show that they are bringing in these kinds of expertise and capabilities from other places, right? And I think also the fact that you would need a lot of capital investment on the part of MAHB, to expand some of the airports as part of the concession agreement. And this is where privatization, together with some capital, assistance from some of these shareholders, will also be important, right? The downside, I think, would be if, let's say, after you do this privatization exercise, you don't actually bring in new management. It's business as usual, or you don't really see a new direction coming in. GIP is not able to bring in good experts from some of their better functioning and more profitable airports into this ecosystem. There's a lot of firefighting that is going on within MAHB that the shareholders are not able to resolve. So all these things can be potential cons, lah. But I would like to make my own initial sort of like take on this, not having gone through the numbers, but just from a sort of like a look and feel perspective. My sense is this, lah. I think that there's more upside for this privatization exercise than downside, and the upside would be the fact that our airports are actually in a pretty bad state. We need new capital, new ideas, new management to come in to be able to overhaul a lot of things outside the limelight of being a listed entity. Right? And if, let's say, we do well later on, 5 years down the road, a lot of good capital expenditure projects, the train hopefully is running by then, get more airlines to come in and work together with MEFCOM to get more routes from KLIA to other parts of the world, and even from Ipoh, from Penang, from KK, from Sarawak. Then you can see the growth story coming in. And I think if, let's say, somehow this deal doesn't go through, which I don't think, I think it will go through, suddenly you'll be able to see the share price fall from 10.90 to probably below $10, right? Yeah. How about you? What is your gut feeling towards this deal?
I think that if, let's say, the world is an ideal place, then maybe not taking this deal could be a good chance.
That means you just do internal restructuring and all that kind of stuff.
If we're in an ideal world, right? Yeah. And because you just renewed for 45 years, blah, blah, blah. Okay. That's number one, right? Number two, I don't know why it just suddenly occurred to me that, airports all being controlled by a private company, will that have any kind of like a national security risk? Because it's a strategic asset. It's the in and out of everything, right? So how would that look like?
Yeah, but it's not really private because Khazanah and EPF will hold 70%, right?
That's right. Yeah. So then I'm thinking, okay, but I don't think, even if it's private, it's highly regulated. So
sure.
I don't think it's going to really be a big issue. But okay, these are two more downsides.
Yeah. Just to highlight something, MAHB actually owns and runs a concession operation in Turkey.
Yeah. Now having said that, yeah. So it's quite common per se. But on the other hand, because we are not in the ideal world, the airport does need a lot of money. We are already in a state where we need to reduce subsidy, everything all. Yeah, I think it is the best option that we can have.
For now, lah. Yeah.
For now, right? And number two, we do need some change of blood in the way we manage things. What do I mean by that is that I think sometimes the hardest thing to deal with is people and how things are run. And sometimes in order to change how things are run, you need to exert a bit more pressure. And we all know that when it's slightly more private and when there's new blood coming in, it can create a lot of skill transfer. And that could change things around. And simply because it is part of a strategic asset and still the largest shareholder is still
Khazanah and
and EPF, what happened is that it is always an open conversation. Halfway through, you can always release. No one say you cannot.
Yeah. Especially if, let's say, the MAHB is doing well.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, then definitely there's that last part of the argument would be, oh, but they already made the first round of money, right? And then the exit. Why should we? But it's either like consultant come in and work for you, revamp your company. Also, you pay the consultancy fee, right?
Correct.
So it's fair, right? People implement some more. So, in my opinion, I think because of the timing and situation we are in, I think there's more upside. But if we are living in a parallel universe where we have all the resources in the world needed, we have all the skill in the world needed, then I do agree.
Yeah, but in a parallel world, you can say that Malaysia per capita is as high as Singapore.
That's right.
So,
that's a parallel world. So what am I trying to say is that as much as we talk about how we can benefit, the thing is we are not in that ideal situation to do it.
Yeah. So I know. I think it's okay to agree to disagree on this issue. Even though I think it's been somewhat politicized out there, I think the proof of the pudding would be in how the shareholders will deliver value after it's been privatized, which I hope will still go on. I may be proven wrong, but I think we'll have to wait and see after Chinese New Year to see what the situation is, whether this deal has gone through. And then after that, continue to monitor this very important asset to see what changes the privatized entity will bring to the table. Right, be right back. Welcome back to the third segment of the Are We Okay podcast for this second podcast of 2025. Peter, so the third part of this podcast, I want to talk about this restriction of sales of AI or generative AI chips to different countries in the world, including Malaysia, right? So it was reported a couple of days ago that the United States, specifically through the Bureau of Industry and Security, this is a not very well-known bureau under the Department of Commerce in the United States, but is getting more well-known because of all the actions is undertaken. They've actually announced some export restrictions in terms of AI chips to different countries. Countries that are in the third tier meaning China, Russia, and even some Southeast Asian countries like Cambodia. You can't sell these chips at all, these high-end chips. If let's say you are TSMC or any one of their any sort of like a sales agent that's part and parcel of the ecosystem. For tier 1 countries like Germany and Japan, no problems, you can continue to sell. And then Malaysia is in tier 2, whereby you still can sell, but there's a cap. And the cap was announced at about 50,000 chips, right? So, of course, this created a lot of worries, a lot of speculation. Oh, will this hit the data center ecosystem in Malaysia? And will it affect the larger semiconductor ecosystem in Malaysia? From my initial readings and also from my engagements with some of the industry people, I think that the immediate impact to Malaysia will likely be very, very low, if not zero. And the reason behind this is that the quota that is set is actually quite high. I think it's about 50,000 chips. And at the same time, it's only restricted to the top-end chips, right? For the regular chips, right? More of the memory chips and whatnot. These companies can still sell, including to China, right? But not to Russia, that's a different story. But definitely can sell unrestricted to Malaysia. And from what I understand, some of these data center entities, many of whom are hyperscalers or co-location players from the US and from the West, they've already secured their supply of chips already from last year and whatnot. So in the immediate term, this is not likely to really impact our sector that much lah. But that hasn't stopped some people like JP Morgan from downgrading some of the stocks, like some of the stocks that are involved in the data center ecosystem in Malaysia, right? So from a sort of like a investor perspective, from your vantage point as somebody who also pays attention to what's happening in the semiconductor sector, what are your thoughts on this?
I think, like you say, there's no immediate impact, but it is more like I kept you from going. So it's kind of like saying that, oh yeah, you got a road right to the kampong, but don't worry, I'll never upgrade it to a highway.
Okay.
So what happened is that as an investor, if I'm looking at long term, it's like, so do I really want to just establish my biggest headquarter there because now there's a cap? I think the issue about this is it will make it a little bit harder for Malaysia to move up the income level. Because what it means is that for job creations that involve a way higher level creation, a way higher up in the value chain, we may reconsider if they need to invest in Malaysia.
Right.
However, is there any way to bypass, go around? I think there is still lah. I mean, what do I mean by that is like, for example, I could have the best chip designer in Malaysia, but I just don't manufacture it here lah. But is there further restriction on that? That one depends on the document paper. So I guess my point is that while at the near future it doesn't feel alarming, it doesn't feel concerning, I think that it should be a point of concern for a long-term strategic play.
Yeah, so I think you've hit the nail on its head. I think that you asked the question, or you put it out there that this has basically said you are on a kampong road lah. I wouldn't say that we are really on a kampong road. I would say that we are on a one-lane road lah, two lane road lah, right? So the question that we have to ask, or the Malaysian government has to ask, if this is the case, we are in tier 2, what can we do to expand the road into a highway, right? To make sure that to ensure that we can go into tier 1, right? And I think this is part and parcel of the foreign policy engagement options that we have. Remember, you asked the question in the previous segment, right, about this increase in racial rhetoric and the 3R tensions and all that maybe affecting the way investors look at us. I would say that this particular issue, meaning the way we position our foreign policy, is actually of much greater concern to investors.
Oh, yes.
So, for example, the more our Prime Minister talks about his close relationship with Hamas, I think the harder it will be for him to engage with the new US administration under Trump that will be sworn in next week on the 20th of January. Right? So these are part and parcel of the larger dilemma that Malaysia faces, right? Meaning that, yes, it is your right as a country to want to balance between East and West, but we are making it increasingly difficult for you to stay in the middle, or even maybe be more partial to one side, meaning the other side lah.
That's right.
Whatever the other side is lah. In this case, it can be, for this case, it will be more towards China and Russia. If let's say you're the US, if let's say you're China and Russia, some countries in the region may be going closer towards the US, like Vietnam, for example, that made the decision not to want to join BRICS, right? So this is something that we should look out for. And the other thing that I noticed when doing a bit of research on this particular issue, right, is that the export restrictions on high-end chips is one area where we don't really see the effect right now. But there's another area that has got to do with export regulations, whereby we see a lot more companies in the region, including from Singapore and also from Malaysia, being put on this entity list. Basically, it's like a blacklist lah. Once your company or your name as an individual appears on this list, it's very hard for you to do business with the US already, right? We've had some examples of this in the past. There has companies that have been named and put on this list, but when I went through that list, I see more and more companies that are being put there. Right? So I think it's a clear signal. hey, don't play with us. This is not something,
Yep.
not a joking matter, lah.
Yep.
Right? And I think the question, the next set of questions that Malaysia needs to ask is, will this kind of action be even escalated more under Trump 2.0, right? Or will the status quo be maintained?
Yeah.
And I think looking at what Trump has done before, by and large, you can anticipate him to ratchet up the pressure even more.
Yeah, this reminds me of some time ago, one of our episode, I think when we talked about when our Prime Minister issued a statement to challenge the US, saying that we are a sovereign nation and stuff like that. And then the US ambassador responded by saying, yeah, you have your right to remain your sovereignty.
And we have a right to.
And we have a right to also balance out our benefit. And I think this is a sign of such retaliation, right? And throughout the last year, actually, this is one conversation that I had a lot with Frankie, my partner, on the economics globally. I don't think the West will allow countries to sit on the fence. Yeah.
We're moving increasingly towards.
That's right. They are forcing you to make choices, and that's what's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. I would even argue that Singapore is trying to sit on the fence as long as they can, right? To delay the decision making up to that day. And I think that that's a good move. So, and here's where I have to say that I think Malaysia struggle with this issue because when we stir up, especially political agenda in the form of a racial agenda, right?
Racial or religious.
Racial or religious. Our leaders are forced to take a stand because if they don't take a stand, they can't win. And so it's kind of like
they feel the political pressure of
that's
wanting.
That's right. And I think that is the current situation of what we are feeling, right? Because you just got to show that.
I don't really think we need to emphasize certain cards a bit too much, and I think everyone knows that Prime Minister cares about the situation in the Middle East. So do I think Indonesian leaders and some in the region as well. And maybe the fact that there's going to be a temporary ceasefire between Hamas and also Israel can be a way in which Prime Minister Anwar can try to rebalance the situation, in terms of Malaysia's current foreign policy perception, that we are seen as being tilted towards China more than the West, so to speak. Right. So with Trump coming in, I think it's a good, time to sort of like do some rebalancing, reprioritization. And I think what a skillful leader should be able to do in this context, right, is to put something on the table, to be proactive before the kind of tough choices are being forced on us.
Yeah.
Right. So one example would be, that Trump is coming in. You know that he's a transactional kind of guy, right? So as chair of ASEAN this year, what you should preemptively do is to try to put something on the table.
That's right.
Offer him something.
That's right.
Right? And I'm not quite sure what offer would pique his interest. But let's say, he likes to talk about trade surpluses or trade deficits, right? We have a trade surplus with the US. It's not as high as, let's say, Vietnam or Mexico, but we are sort of like, top 15. But at the same time, we buy a lot of services from the US. Facebook, Google, Microsoft, software, and other kinds of services, trade in the services sector, right? So the US benefits from trading with us on the services side. We benefit in terms of trading with them on the goods side, right? So we could, go to President Trump and say, look, we want to invite more US companies to sell their services here, especially in the tech ecosystem.
Yeah.
Use Malaysia as an entry point into Southeast Asia,
Yes,
where you can actually earn much more money. And with all these tech bros that are part of the ecosystem around him, with all the different Silicon Valley leaders that have pivoted towards Trump, we saw what Facebook did, what Mark Zuckerberg did this week. In terms of signaling his very definite interest in terms of wanting to please Trump, naming Dana White to be part of his board. We see Mark Andreessen of Andreessen Horowitz publicly coming out to say that he's supporting Trump. Right. So when you when you see this kind of the people in that ecosystem, put something on the table,
Yeah.
right? And I think the tech sector in the US, they're looking for new leadership because Biden, frankly speaking, I think on most accounts failed them. This could be one thing that we should try to leverage. We should try to leverage the fact that Tesla has a big presence now in Malaysia, growing. Of course, they compete against BYD and other players. That's fine. Is there a possibility whereby we can say, hey, look, we want Tesla to have more innovations here in Malaysia. We want to fast track the ability for Tesla to test out its full service driving mode, right? FSD.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You own a Tesla, but your FSD mode is disabled, correct? You can't do the FSD level 4 driving.
Yeah, I didn't get I didn't get that because it is not allowed, so no point getting it.
Correct, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, what happens if, let's say, we say, Tesla, we can allow you that to be implemented here in Malaysia?
So actually, I feel that actually right now, Johor SDZ is actually
good news.
That's actually a very good place to actually put up the offer, which I'm surprised that the whole Johor Singapore SDZ seem to be more positioned to be welcoming towards anyone else except the US. Now, I'm not saying that they're not welcoming, but it's just that there's no heart thumping, drumming welcome, you know what I mean?
I think, just as you said, they needed to get the ink dry in terms of the details first between the two countries before you could get in others. But, if let's say we can have a position whereby we can allow FSD in, let's say, Klang Valley and in Johor to be tested for Tesla, and that can be a signal that you can send to Elon Musk. He will be saying, Malaysia is the first Southeast Asian country to be able to do this.
And actually, it's very important because the way that people drive here in the US is entirely different. Entirely different.
Yep.
So it has to respond in a different way.
Yes, exactly. And that's where you need to have that kind of local customization. You can have some of those sort of like service ecosystem built out here and deployed here. But yeah, I know that is one example of how we can signal that Malaysia is open for business. Of course, we would say we welcome Tesla, but to have an open playing field, we also allow BYD to come in to have level 4 driving if they want, and I'm sure Tesla will be fine with that because it's open competition.
So the idea is that if you do more of these, what happens is that naturally you also usher in the higher level technology, and what happens is that eventually they have to allow that tier 1 listing, right?
Exactly.
You're paving your way towards that.
Right.
So here's where I feel that I don't know why we are not. Okay, this is what I think, right? I think while we do have our leaders do need to show a strong man, do need to show sovereignty, but the chest thumping welcome should not be only for certain countries. It should be more equal.
And also it should be more strategic.
That's right. I think like Indonesia did that quite well. At one point, I think Singapore does it quite well, where it's quite equal.
I think Singapore does it better. Indonesia, I think, will run into problems if, let's say, Apple decides to complain to the new administration.
Okay. With the new president announced already,
Yes,
but
correct,
the previous president,
Yeah.
it was done quite well. It's kind of like, I treat all of you equal, I'm open for business. These are the strategic countries, like that. Not so much of a fighting about sovereignty,
Yeah, and the other thing, in terms of the semiconductor ecosystem that we may want to play up and put on the table to the US is that, look, no matter what your CHIPS Act does, no matter how much money you want to pump into your semiconductor ecosystem in the US, you will never be able to produce everything yourself. You'll never be able to do all the IC design stuff yourself, right? Why not, be a strategic partner to Malaysia, so that we can show you that we can be a secure partner for you in this region, and we can be part and parcel of the IC design ecosystem that can ensure your own security.
Yeah,
right.
That's right.
And you also may not want to be over dependent on Taiwan because of the risk of war over there, right? So that's why Malaysia can actually play a very good sort of like a role in terms of offering things to the US, right? So putting that package together is important, and I'm sure that this will be an issue that we'll talk more next week. Once President Trump announces a slew of executive actions as in his first week in office, it will keep us very busy, and I'm sure it'll keep a lot of other US watchers very busy as well. It'll definitely keep Miti and Maida very busy because of all these trade
This one
actions.
is exactly falling under
Sure,
Maida Miti,
yeah,
right?
yeah, Maida Miti, my former ministries, and also I'm still a board member at Maida. Right? So be right back to talk about something that many people have not really focused on, but I want to raise this up as something interesting so that I can take you behind the curtain. Be right back. Welcome back to the final segment of this Are We Okay episode. Peter, I want to talk about this particular story which hasn't really made the national news, but is significant for other reasons. And this involves the arrest of some figures from the Sarawak ecosystem for a money laundering case. And this was a couple of days ago, whereby the announcement was actually made by the current IGP, or the Inspector General of the Police, Razaruddin Hassan, where a couple of senior executives from TV Sarawak and some of his associates were arrested here in KL for money laundering, and a former deputy mayor of Kuching was also arrested, I think under the same operations, and will likely be sent over here to KL for questioning and likely to be charged. Did you notice this piece of news before I shared it with you?
No, it was a bit of very silent.
But my friends in Sarawak, when they saw this, they definitely paid attention because they know the people who were arrested, and they also know who they are friends with or who they are associated with. Right. So from what I heard, this is, I need to speak carefully so that I don't get myself and us in trouble. From what I heard, these people, I think, were a little bit too brazen in terms of their attempts to, extract, benefits from certain things that is happening in Sarawak. And it is, I think, significant that the IGP himself would announce the arrest of these people for money laundering. Right? Because usually for money laundering, this guy is not even an MP, right?
Yep.
You don't expect the IGP, it can be the head of the criminal investigation department to come out to say, this and all that. But IGP came out to say. So to me, when I look at this, it is a signal is being sent. So then the question becomes, who is that signal being sent to? So I want to sort of put that question out there. And then at the same time, I also want to draw your attention and our viewers' attention to some sort of a resolution in the Sarawak gas distribution issue. For our listeners who may not know this, there has been an ongoing tussle between the Sarawak state government and also Petronas, whereby the Sarawak state government has come up very strongly to say that I want the rights to be able to distribute natural gas within Sarawak itself, right? And then also at the same time pushing for more responsibility to do upstream oil and gas exploration in Sarawak itself, right? So there were a lot of people that were worried about not the first part, not the gas distribution part, because ultimately Sarawak is still a small market, right? It's profitable for Petronas, but not that big of a deal, right? When you talk about gas distribution, Petronas competes against Malaysia Gas here in Peninsular Malaysia, if worst come to worst, Petronas can always sell the gas to other overseas players, So that's is not really that big of an issue, the first part, but the second part involves upstream exploration rights, which means going beyond the 3 nautical miles within the state boundaries, that is under the jurisdiction of the Petroleum Development Act, the PDA 1974, which basically means that all your offshore oil and gas exploration is actually under the purview of the federal government.
Yep.
Right? So, Sarawak state government did a deal. They will take over the distribution of gas in Sarawak. But Abang Joe basically thanked Anwar Ibrahim and said that he agrees with the jurisdiction of the Petroleum Development Act. And this is what Anwar Ibrahim said as well. Basically, at least for now, putting a lid shut on whether or not Sarawak has the right to explore upstream oil and gas, assets and resources outside the 3 nautical miles lah. Because ultimately, I mean, there's no oil and gas within the 3 nautical miles lah, right? Most of it is outside lah. And same thing for Sabah as well, right? So, I am trying to draw our listeners' attention to whether or not there's a linkage between these two things lah. These arrests that are not very high profile, but drew the attention of the IGP so much so that he had to make an announcement on this. And the very, I think, good resolution of what was, I think, quite worrying kind of tensions between the Sarawak state government and the federal government on the oil and gas issue, involving Petros and also Petronas, right? So if I describe these two different sets of occurrences, right, do you think that is a coincidence?
I'm in a difficult position because I'm wondering. Yeah, it's a very careful place to say anything.
Yes.
I mean, anything is in the form of speculation.
Yes. All right.
Or more like just trying to read a chessboard.
Yes. I think the best that we should do now is just draw our listeners' attention to these two set of occurrences, right? And then ask you guys to watch this space. More details may be revealed, especially if, let's say, the people who were arrested for the money laundering cases, they are ultimately charged, and more details of those charges will be known and reported on. But in the meantime, it is something that maybe has escaped the attention of many people, but could be something that is of significance. And definitely, I think the resolution for now, in terms of the ongoing negotiations between Petronas and also Petros, the fact that has been resolved, I think is a good thing.
Nonetheless, I think it's quite interesting to see the development of Sarawak, because I just came back of Sarawak not too long ago. I mean, talking about good things is the fact that I'm quite amazed at how Abang Joe is actually trying to change things around there, right? Like the fact that now tertiary education for Sarawakians will be free when it comes to taking up, I think, finance subjects and accounting subjects. I was talking to quite a lot of people and quite a lot of business owners there. They were telling me that actually the truth is, if you're smart and you have opportunity, right, and you can break into the circle there, growing roots there right now, has a lot of opportunity.
I think the challenge is, how do you break into those circles?
Yes, the challenge is how to break into the circle.
Yeah, and also how the Sarawak government wants to open up, its economy to allow, non-Sarawakians to also go and work and invest there.
So I heard, right, the other day, if your kid is going to school there and say like one of the best institution, one of the best top ranking private St. Joseph International, right? Apparently the fee for 1 year is quite low one.
Yeah, it's not that high.
It's very low compared to KL, right?
It's like maybe 1,500 a month, something like that.
Crazy, man.
Yeah.
Like I was like, whoa, I think if I send my kid there to study, I'm gonna get them like the best quality education and at half the price of here, So it was quite interesting actually to see.
Yeah, so to expand the ecosystem, to allow more investors to go there, to allow more international schools to operate, more teachers to go there, you basically have to have a much more efficient, labor market and also approval processes for non-Sarawakians to go and live and work there.
Yeah, but here's the funny thing, because in order to go and work there, it's very hard. Because you need to get a visa I mean, not visa they are.
Work visa, work permits.
Work visa, work permit right? So then the question is that, while they are very welcoming right now, I wonder how fast are they going to be able to open up the economy there and say, we allow more foreign people to come in. And in this case, your foreign means local Malaysians as well.
Sure,
Yeah, who actually go there and expand their business across. I think that's also a space to watch, and that will be pretty exciting.
Yeah, so as more and more, I think, clarity comes from the different green initiatives that Sarawak wants to undertake, I think they will hit some natural barriers along the way. And it will be interesting to see how Abang Joe and his administration tries to address those issues. Because I think talking and all that, I think is one thing, but the actual business of getting people there to attract them to go and live, work and play there is a whole new proposition, especially if you have aspirations to make Sarawak into some sort of Singapore or some sort of a very open economy with a very dynamic services ecosystem. That you can't do things as you did in the past. Okay, it's going to be close to Chinese New Year by the time you guys listen to this. So I want to take this opportunity together with Peter to wish you 恭喜发财, 万事如意, 生意兴隆. Want to wish you safe journeys on the road, especially those who are going back home, and have a good time with your family.
Thank you very much for watching the show. Happy Chinese New Year. Enjoy your holiday. Eat a lot and make a lot of money for this year.
We'll have one more episode before the actual Chinese New Year day on the 29th of January. And it will involve a special guest that will come here to talk about tourism in Malaysia and in Southeast Asia. I'm sure you'll learn a lot from this very special guest. So with that, I'd like to say thank you very much and see you soon.